almost in, no, we're in mid-May right now, that part. So the US definitely sells, I mean, we're a big arms dealer too. So let's just go ahead and take it. Hey, let's just take it there. We are a huge arms dealer, the United States of America. And sometimes we don't think about the country in that way, but I want you to start thinking about the country in that way. Congress has not addressed gun violence in this country, and President Biden has promised to take action on gun violence. He's taken none. The only problem is it turns out that his administration has been engaging in selling guns to some of the most brutal dictators on the planet. So while we talk about these people and how egregious the way they run their government, we talk about them, but we ain't about it, because wherever we can get $1 or $2, selling it to some of the worst dictators on the planet, and then got the nerve to fix their mouths, as my grandmother would say, to talk about these people. This right here, Biden is selling weapons to the majority of the world's autocracies.
Yes.
Okay, that's what the man doing.
Yeah, I think I just saw that from the Independent too. I think it's like 57% of them or something, or somewhere around there. Yeah, billions of dollars every year are sold to especially, and too, like to cartels. Like cartels get most of their weapons from the United States.
From the United States.
Albeit more likely than not under the table, but still corrupt agents who work in the government. That's where they're getting their guns from.
Under the table, over the table, around the table.
Yep.
It's happening, Jack. And this right here, Intercept. According to an Intercept review of recently released government data.
Yep, I was right.
The US sold weapons to at least 57% of the world's autocratic countries. And I'm laughing to not cry or to not scream or to not throw stuff in this office, in this studio. Since the end of the Cold War, the United States has been the world's biggest weapons dealers. Okay, y'all know what's coming. Okay,
wrong. Toss them.
That's the biggest.
Yeah,
the biggest dealer, accounting for 40% of all arms exports in a given year. Let's put this graph up there. Hey, Jesus, put this up for me, baby. And here's a graph that really breaks this all down. US sold weapons to 57% of the world's autocracies in 2022. Y'all see this? You hear what I'm saying? For America now, good old fashioned America, who would talk junk about these people, but they selling them the
right. We giving them the guns though.
Giving them the guns. I mean, it's hypocrisy.
Yeah.
And next graph, US arms sales in 2022 exceed Trump era highs. Let's go and stay right here for the remainder of the show, team. Let's just go and stay right here, Jackson. This is it. I feel my blood boiling back up. US arms sales in 2022 exceed Trump era highs. Look at this shit.
Set big goals, you know what I'm saying? I mean, but literally that's what they're doing. Like they're really doing this. They're making the world a more dangerous place. And when you look at stuff like this, or you look at like military spending, that's basically what it is. It's like
billions of dollars. That's billions of dollars.
And it's just weapons of death. And especially too, like one of the things that you said about like AR-15s, for instance, like that is just a weapon of war. You can't even really effectively protect your house with, you know what I'm saying? Like, so it's just, yeah.
So you know what? We don't want to hear they nonsense, because their actions are speaking louder than their words. So when they fix their mouths to talk about any dictator in any country around the world, ask them why they the dealers, why they the pushers of weapons of mass destruction. They pushers. That's what they are, they pushers. Lord have mercy on my black soul today. That's it, I got to call out the black soul today, not just any soul. Lord have mercy on it. And that's our time today. Action Jackson, it was so good to have you here today. I was not feeling all revved up when the show started, but between the theme song and you and some other things, I'm starting to feel a little better. Thank you for joining us. Can't wait till next Monday. And thank each and every one of you for being on the show with us today. It definitely was a roller coaster ride today. Thank you for being on. You know when you watch Boss Baby, you got to strap up. in terms of click, strap in your seat. Not strap up the other way, but strap into.
We'll do that too. You know what I'm saying?
Strap on up into the seat. All right, that is it. You know what I want you to do about this time. I want you to keep the faith. Always do that. But more importantly, I want you to keep the fight until next time.
Welcome, friends. Welcome, family. What's up, Ma? Happy Mother's Day to all you guys out there since we missed just yesterday. Welcome to the watch list, all of you out there, children, mothers alike. How you guys doing? Glad you could join me on a Monday edition of the show. Lots going on as usual as we jump into this week. Last Monday, I was not here. And as a matter of fact, one Jessica Burbank joined on the program, sat in, not in this seat, but definitely in my place. Now she's back hanging out, just responding to all the extra talking that I have to do. What's going on, Jessica? She joins me again on a Monday. Burbank, hailing from somewhere on the East Coast. I don't want to give up too much information. How was your weekend?
It was great. I had a fun weekend. Too much fun, Jayar. But we missed you last week. Waz and I were very sad, but we're glad you're back.
I have a feeling that didn't miss too much, but I am wondering this: was it still the best damn day of the week? Well, it effing better have, because it is again today. Glad you guys are here for us for yet another version of that. Really fast, I told you I was going to tell you some Vegas stories because I was there last weekend. I had to creep back into town by Monday and hang out and not think too much about all this. But one quick story, because I was about to tell this off there, so I'm sorry, you guys. We got tons going to. But I went there with a few college buddies I went to school with at SC. 5, 6 of us showed up. We did stupid, ridiculous things while we were in school. We went to Vegas on a regular thing, like as if it was a frat party down the street. We would just take off. So it was a bit of a reminiscent trip. We're like, what about we used to do? We strolled by an MGM. It was a long line, Burbank, at the club. And even at, I'd say 23, I was like, clubs, over it. So apparently at 43, when you're walking around and you see kids, you call them kids, in the club line, you go, oh my God, I can't imagine a worse experience for my evening. It was like midnight at this point. I was like, I'd rather walk up and down this strip and see random crazy people than to stand in that line and then get into the club and then have the club owners or waiters and come around and say, hey, how about we sell you this normal bottle of alcohol that you can get down the street at the CVS for, I'd say, $32, and let's charge you $250 for it because, hey, there's 4 guys here. Don't you guys want to be drinking? And yeah, we'll be the suckers and do it, and then we'll try and ration it the whole time. It's a stressful situation. Let's keep it real. We saw that line and we said, no, that's the worst thing I could possibly see. The last day I was there, we're at some coastal like resident locals type of casino. We walk by the buffet. There's a line coming out of the buffet. I'm not lying to you. The average age of this group of 7 to 10 elderly ladies was 80 to 85 years old. We saw canes, we saw walkers, and they were living their best life. We saw that line and we went, I bet that buffet is good.
We are.
We related to the old ladies more than we related to the young folks stepping into the club. But the one thing we got was good food that weekend. So embrace the aging, Burbank, is the moral of the story. Embrace it.
What is some club for you, Jayar?
If you don't, it's gonna hit you anyway. It hit me. Enough of story time, you guys. Let's go ahead and jump into some of these stories since we got that out of the way. I'm not gonna tell you about all the money that I won because I don't brag like that. Let's go into this first story though, you guys, back on the serious tip. And we saw over the weekend things going on in America that pretty much illustrate where we're going in America. Let's go. This white supremacist terrorist group, Patriot Front, run around in Washington, D.C. talking about reclaiming America. Wonder who they're trying to reclaim America from. It's odd. Maybe someone should pay attention to these types of things because whatever they're talking about must be pretty wild and pretty dangerous. There's 150 of them, by the way, that walked around, and they were walking around with their shields out, their flags up. Looks like variations of the American flag. That looks like that's something we shouldn't be doing if you're real patriots, but who cares? They're white guys. So by the way, the disruption was happening, but there were still hecklers hanging out, not willing to buy this whole fearful approach and energy that these guys are trying to put out. Here's some of the heckling that actually was pretty funny.
Show your face.
I would love to speak of our nation's great history, of our people's tireless accomplishments, but I cannot.
Wear Walmart khakis.
I would love to speak of the will of the European race that made America. There will be no memory of America to continue.
Your mom hates you.
No history to fight for.
You were the losers of your high
We
school
have gone
class.
out into this once
You're a bunch of
great country.
incels.
I kind of love his bike too. Looked like one of those electric bikes, but he's still pedaling hard from it.
So like plan on being there. Just whoever was on the bike just rocked up and was like, "Ah, this is fun. Let me say some stuff to them."
Yeah, he rolled by probably a Subway, had his sandwich, and he's like, you know what? Looks like there's a bit of a group going here. I think I have some things to say. So true Americans fighting right back against these patriots that want to go ahead and hurt folks. So still, I ask myself the question, or a lot of people ask themselves this question: how is it we're looking at these white supremacist terrorists walking around our streets, talking about reclaiming America, covering up their faces to keep their identities hidden? How do we get to this point where this is so normalized? Where there's folks from politicians to pundits that like to push this types of thing as a normal thing, or anyone who pushes back on it as being radical, crazy, and hateful. One of those folks is Tomi Lahren. And after I saw this morning, and also coupled with this, these types of things always work in coordination. Watch what she said.
Under the guise of we've had tragedies happen under lone wolf terrorists and then label it all white supremacy, that's a scapegoat.
Yeah, well, this is what they have been doing and doing effectively, especially in the midterms that we just saw. Biden, his entire administration, Democrats as a whole, have been able to use this ultra mega white supremacist threats to democracy. They've been able to use this. It is no coincidence they echo this every time they get a chance, because they want those independent, those Democrat, and especially those liberal voters to actually believe the biggest threat we face is white supremacy, because they can't really solve that. Right? You can solve the border crisis. That's solvable. Donald Trump did it. You can solve national security to an extent. You can't solve this boogeyman called white supremacy, and that's why they continue to echo it, because they don't actually have to do anything.
You don't have to believe what you see in the streets, Burbank. You can just believe what Tomi Lahren and politicians say on TV all the time about how anybody's pushed back against terrorists, specifically these white supremacist terrorists, is on the wrong side of it, and we can't fix it. I think that's a very illustrative point as from their approach. We can't fix it, well, especially when you don't care to.
I think Tomi Lahren, Jayar, wears too much self-tanner for someone running game for white supremacists. I think that's wrong. I don't think she should be allowed to use it. She defends white supremacists in this country. That's how I feel. And what she says there is hilarious, because if you replace white supremacy with woke mind virus, it's a pretty solid argument for why the right obsessing over the woke mind virus is ridiculous when it comes to American politics today.
It's the approach that they'll take, and look, apparently it's working, because we'll still have people who don't even be able, which we'll go to in a minute later on in the show, can't even define what woke is, but they definitely have a vehement aggression against it. It's just the way these things are. So of course, when you see these folks in the streets, it's either, hey, that's not really what you're seeing, or as we see folks that were responding to this, those weren't really white supremacist terrorists. These are people trying to produce some kind of narrative. On Reddit, there's some conspiracy theories that were floating around though. On the Reddit forum for conspiracy theories, ironically, one user said those taking part in the march, quote, look suspiciously like feds and all a little too uniform to me to be authentic. So apparently you have to be a little bit more disheveled and not in uniform if you're some white supremacist. There's more. I said the fact that there's no more morbidly obese people among the crowd is a dead giveaway that there are trained feds, is what another person wrote. You know how I know they're feds? No beer bellies. Not saying every gun-loving American has one, but statistically, there should be a couple at least, right? I mean, walk around with beer bellies and stuff. I remember they said the same thing about women who actually want reproductive rights for all folks who can have babies, right? They want to be able to have their rights, but then they said, oh, you guys are too fat and ugly anyway. How are you getting pregnant in the first place? Apparently the fat and ugly ones are also part of these Patriot Front groups and all those folks, but if you don't see them, that means they're not real. Just grasping at anything that they can. There's more though. Someone else was tweeting this out. Do you think that the FBI is just going to let a neo-Nazi group pile into the back of a Penske rental truck and drive up the highway? This is a covert FBI sting operation to indoctrinate dummies. There's some operation to indoctrinate dummies, and I think this guy got wrapped up in it. Ask yourself why they would want them to freely roam across the country. I'm not sure who we're asking, and also who the they is, because there was the Patriot Front bucks jumping in back of vans, parading across the country, doing what they did over the weekend. One more, Burbank. Sheepdog Frank. More white supremacy means more budget justification with zero risk. More excuses to crack down on citizens in the name of fighting white supremacy. Quote, white supremacy, as he pointed out, because apparently it doesn't exist. Again, this is the #1 domestic terror group, white supremacists and neo-Nazis. They're looking to inflict more pain and violence on just about any other American that isn't the one marching along with them. And these guys are talking about how there's some kind of a budget justification for doing this. This is the problem. Our federal government is talking about it, but what are they doing about it? this is the point, to try and keep them from ever going in that route and saying that it just doesn't exist.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, talking about it but not doing anything about it. Because why were they allowed to just march around Washington, D.C. openly saying they're white supremacists? The idea that everyone who does something like this is a Fed is so annoying coming from members of the right wing. And then to say, now we're going to have a crackdown on ordinary citizens under the name of white supremacy. It's like, were you not around for any of the Black Lives Matter protests? And to say crack down on ordinary citizens when the far right in this country is all for increasing the police budget and loving on the police. Like, there's so much cognitive dissonance between folks saying, oh, well, they don't look like us. We don't look like that. Okay, so you're saying you know what white supremacists look like and you identify with them, know that they have beard bellies? Like, it just doesn't add up. You can't say there's not real white supremacists and say, no, I know them, they don't look like that. Also, Hitler was like super down for aesthetics and like wanted everybody to match. Like, it turns out eugenicists care a lot about how people look. So the uniform thing is pretty standard for people deep into like fascist ideology. So a lot of what they're saying doesn't really track. We can learn a lot about the country from Reddit threads, probably more than reading mainstream news.
Most likely, it goes down to the same questions. Ask who, what, when, where, why, and how. Just ask folks this as they go through it, and they'll eventually get to a brick wall. Ask it with all earnest interest in what it is that they might be saying, without just, well, what do you think? Ask them, see if they get there. Let's go to this next story, because people are asking James Comer who, what, when, where, why, and how when it comes to this investigation into the Biden family. If he has something, I'm all for it, bro. But does he? This is what's been going on lately.
You have spoken with whistleblowers. You also spoke with an informant who gave you all of this information. Where is that informant today? Where are these whistleblowers?
Well, unfortunately, we can't track down the informant. We're hopeful that the informant is still there. The whistleblower knows the informant. The whistleblower is very credible.
Well, James Comer, who's a part of the Republicans' investigation to the Biden family and all their financial crimes and getting money from outside countries and apparently doing the bidding of those countries, he's finally come to a whole point here. Well, all of his points have come to womps. Maybe this one is just another one of those. Bartiromo couldn't believe what she heard there when he said they lost their informant and whistleblower. Say what? Let's listen to what she had to say.
Hold on a second, Congressman. Did you just say that the whistleblower or the informant is now missing?
Well, we're hopeful that we can find the informant. Now, remember, these informants are kind of in the spy business. So they don't make a habit of being seen a lot or being high profile or anything like that. We have basic information with respect to what the informant has alleged, and it's very serious.
So we lost the informant somehow, the informant that was blowing the whole lid off of this whole thing. But still, we've got all this information available, and still Maria Bartiromo couldn't believe it. She believes everything else that generally happens, but then since when it comes on her show and tells her, but since this is now the thing, she can't believe how incompetent this could be. The clown car continues to just have people piling out of it. She can't believe it, but there's a way that they can go about spinning this though. So now, the informant is missing that probably never existed. This is how they then twist this into the more nefarious behavior behind the Biden administration. Let's watch more.
Are there whistleblowers or informants missing right now?
Well, with what we've investigated and the people that we've tracked down, going back to the CEFC, the two main players in that business, as well as all the Americans that were involved in the different Biden influence peddling schemes, as well as the Serbian national, the 9 of the 10 people that we've identified that have very good knowledge with respect to the Bidens, they're one of 3 things. Maria, they're either currently in court, they're currently in jail, or they're currently missing. So it's of the utmost importance that the FBI work with us.
This is absolutely extraordinary, and it is stunning that some people are missing, that you need to prove this. Who in the White House is intimidating these people? Do you know?
I do know. We're saving that for a later time. But I can tell you one thing that a lot of people don't know
Oh my God, you've got people in the White House that you know have been purposely influencing folks, offing whistleblowers and informants, and James Comer's gonna wait on that information. I want you to think for 3 seconds about how much sense that makes. James Comer came out last week on Wednesday and had this whole Judgment Day thing, which I'm gonna get to as well, as far as the Bidens. And now that he's got apparently more information and these whistleblowers turn up missing, the informants are missing, there's none of them around, and he's gonna hold on to that information to a later date. What later date and why? Did she ask him any of those questions? Hell no, Burbank. She asked him none of those questions. The whole point is to first turn this clown car thing into then a conspiracy theory about what the Bidens have done to his informants.
Yeah, when she's asking about like, where's the whistleblower now? It's giving his response like, oh, I have a girlfriend, she just goes to another school. Whistleblowers and informants, but they're just very secretive, you know? They like their privacy, they keep a low profile. And then when she asks, are they lost? And he says, well, I hope we find them. It's like, so yes, they're missing. It's like asking, are you failing your class right now? Well, I hope I passed the class. It's like that doesn't answer the question. And it's obvious he's constructing a narrative by giving as little information as possible and just hinting that there might be a whistleblower telling us some stuff that really fits what we'd like to take action on next. It's so obvious.
And even those things that they've told us or had all these breaking news on and press conferences and in hearings and everything on still are producing nothing but speculation that, of course, he says this random nobody whistleblower is confirming all the things that I've been saying to you guys. But again, I mentioned how last week he came out with this, he's gonna have some concrete information. This is him promising that on just, I wanna give you guys the full scope of how clownish James Comer is, because I've been ignoring all this nonsense, seeing little bits and pieces, but I wanna show you guys what he's been up to. This is what he said on Tuesday before he came out with Judgment Day.
What can you tell us, Congressman, about what you're gonna be showcasing tomorrow?
Well, tomorrow, for the first time, the American people are gonna see actual bank records that show wire transfers from adversaries around the world into a web of LLCs that were owned or controlled by the Bidens. And then those transfers were made back into the Biden family accounts. So I think tomorrow is going to be Judgment Day for the Biden administration, the Biden White House, and I'm anxious to see how the mainstream media covers this.
Congressman, do any of those bank records show cash going directly into Joe Biden's bank account?
Well, you'll see tomorrow, Jesse, they set this up to be as complicated as possible.
Have you guys heard of James Comer answer a question yet? These are Fox News folks asking him yes or no questions. So are the informants offed? Well, and also, are we gonna see Judgment Day tomorrow? Well, and it's always around the same thing. You guys heard that T-Mobile commercial or AT&T, one of them? They go, well, because they don't wanna actually answer the question because they don't have an answer for it. How was that Judgment Day turnout, by the way? De La Beast talked about it. It was publicized as Judgment Day for Biden. And the conference ultimately proved anticlimactic, largely consisting of Comer throwing around vague, unsubstantiated accusations and failing to link the president to any of these relatives' alleged, quote, influence peddling that they've been talking about. The report itself does not substantiate these claims or implicate Mr. Biden. It does not allege illegal conduct either. The report does not show payments to Mr. Biden, neither does it provide explicit evidence to back up the Republican lawmaker's central claim that the business dealings influenced Mr. Biden. Lastly, Mr. Comer and his colleagues stopped short of alleging illegal activity. I wonder why. And the White House then called those findings baseless innuendo. This is the stage here. It's, of course, designed to make people think something's going on that they have absolutely no evidence of. And if that is going on, I'm sure they'd be providing that evidence. I would look forward to that evidence. But that's not really what they're in the business of doing. They're in the business of sowing some kind of doubt in people's heads.
No, that's exactly where I want to go next, Jayar. It's like her face and the dramatics, and also Jesse Waters too. The way they ask the questions, they're like, so are you saying informants are missing? And it's like, this is almost a soap opera or something. The dramatics are so extensive. The fact that people can watch this and think that this is objective news meant to inform is insane to me. How can that make sense in your head when you see how she looks into the barrel of the camera? And then, of course, you have London Roberts' case in Arkansas. So Hunter Biden's mother of child suing. Well, it was a case Hunter Biden brought to court to have the payments lower And now London Roberts has an attorney where it's the same attorney that worked for the Trump administration in Wisconsin, right? During the post-election election fraud cases. So these are people that were suing to have ballots discounted in Wisconsin. Now they represent Hunter Biden's baby mother in a case where they have to sift through Hunter Biden's finances. It's just absolutely insane the extent to which the right will go to get this information about the Bidens. So if anything comes out of this, I think it's going to be out of that court case. And this mystery informant, I wouldn't be surprised if it was London Roberts' lawyers just leaking stuff that was not meant to be made public found during that case.
Anything to sow a little bit of doubt, but then of course cover that last part up. Let's take this first break though, you guys, really quick. But also when we come back from it, we've there was a migrant wave that I heard was coming up once Title 42 expired and ended. We have updates on that, but also TYT's very own Michael Schur showed up at the Iowa rally that was supposed to be for Donald Trump that never happened. Folks still there were ready to talk. There's some good stuff in there. We're gonna do a lot more when we get back.
Welcome to Happy Hour, everybody. After a week of soul-crushing news, we break out the good stuff. Good news, good videos, good people, and of course, drink good alcohol. That's the worst thing I've ever had.
This is the best show.
Full disclosure, we did do a shot right before the show began. It says,
let's
flamingo.
Flamingo.
The reason you had trouble with that word is it's not a word.
Okay.
This is the one of everything.
I've got a rash. Could I just put it on that to see if it'll take it off?
What did you used to think this was?
Bull.
Drink it, swallow it,
No.
spit it. Oh, that's needed after a day like this. Cheers to Brett Ehrlich. Climax. Uranus smells like farts. Because of course it does. This is the worst sketch ever of a perp. But guess what, ladies and gentlemen? They found the guy. This is Sophie's super happy dog story of the week.
This dog is so precious and deserves the world. I'm just not drinking that beer.
Here's my dog. This is Onyx.
Yeah, I would just say that he's exotic because he's not your traditional dog. Still 12 out of 10 because they're all good.
Well, if that made you happy, just wait till you see the best thing ever of the week. There is a woman who moves like a horse.
Why do I want to go home and like try this?
We're actually going to show you the running butthole challenge right now. What's happening? No, that's just wrong. Every way. And we'll see you next time.
Hey Dave, as you can probably see, Skype froze.
Yes.
Frozen crashed.
You know, I'm watching that documentary on the Vietnam War, and there was a TV journalist in the middle of some tiny little village in Vietnam doing live TV as the soldiers were burning the Vietnamese huts, and it didn't crash. And that was 1965, and he was in Vietnam.
What's up, you guys? TYT members, really fast. Bill's Dragon circles the wagons. What's up? Says, my grandma's an original Met fan since 1962. And on her behalf, I just want to say, great hat. And on my behalf to your grandmother, good luck. The cursed Mets, kind of like my Clippers, just never fully get over the hill. Let you guys twitch really fast. Redeemed highlight, my message. I guess that's the name, but this was redeemed, it was highlighted. But it's ZZ158 Troy, says Jayar, Emily and Emilio are too much. I agree, I'm just not sure what they did. Those are my producers for you guys who I don't mention them enough. We got the M&M crew, Emilio and Emily, part of the production crew here, you guys. Awesome.
I love that, Emilio, Emily, M and M.
Yeah. Eminem, that's the way they're written. Last, you guys, YouTube super chats. Cody Stanley, you're wearing Walmart khakis. LMFAO. That was one of the best insults. Also, Le Dragon Francois. I don't know how to say these words. It's the French. All of a sudden, the informants and whistleblowers are inaccessible, awful, freaking convenient. By the way, Jess, I love your hair. Everyone loves Jess's hair. Let's go ahead and jump to this next story, you guys. We got things happening with Title 42 expiring.
It's been 3 days since the end of Title 42, the pandemic-era policy that slowed the number of migrants allowed into the U.S. With Thursday's expiration, many border communities were bracing for a surge of migrants, but at least for now, that has not happened yet. Homeland Security officials say there were about 4,200 encounters yesterday, as they call them. That's a big drop from the day before, and yesterday's numbers are less than half of the 10,000 seen at the U.S.-Mexico border in the days before Title 42 ended. Just minutes ago, we heard from President Biden as he completed a bike ride, and here's what he had to say about the situation down at the border.
How do you think things are going at the border, sir?
Much better than you all expected.
Do you have any plans to visit the border?
I think. Pardon me?
Do you have any plans to visit the border?
Not in the near term, no. No, just be disruptive, not anything else.
Well, the perceived results from Title 42 ending apparently aren't the same as Republicans were predicting that it would be, and I understand why they thought so, but now that it isn't, aren't they ready to celebrate? Aren't they happy about this whole thing? Aren't they like, yes, our border is secure, our border is safer. We were expecting a disaster, and we didn't get it. Are you hearing that from Republicans, or are you hearing them talk about how much they hate this, or actually nothing at all because it didn't work out for their political advantage, which again is the only thing that they care about. So next time you vote for them and think they're representing you, they're not. They're representing themselves, their money, and the people who pay them to do all these things. To drive that point home, Senator Chris Murphy, a Democrat out of Connecticut, talked about how Republicans care so much more about politics than they do actually about policies that affect Americans. Watch.
Well, Republicans have had multiple opportunities to come to the table and pass immigration reform that would fix the problem at the border. And my belief is that while you have a small group of Republicans who legitimately want to engage, the majority of that party delights at chaos at the border. You saw some of my colleagues on Tuesday, as soon as votes were done, rush down to the border to take smiling photographs with the Border Patrol, essentially celebrating the fact that there was chaos because they believe that there's political gain to be had. So I think Americans know that it's Republicans, not Democrats, that have been sitting on the outside when it comes to fixing our broken immigration system.
I think if you actually look at the way things were happening and the way that they've been acting, Chris Murphy there is being completely 100% right there. Let's jump down to graphic 2 though, because again, as you saw the numbers in that first piece, the numbers that they were expecting are lower and actually lower than what it was beforehand. US authorities saw a 50% drop in the number of migrant encounters along the border over the previous 2 days compared to earlier in the week. That was before Title 42 ended. Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas told CNN's Dana Bash that. US and Mexican officials say that the Biden administration's warnings to asylum seekers and displays of immigration enforcement have deterred more migrants from crossing the border illegally. Now, it's probably many libs, Burbank, that probably don't like that. I remember when Kamala Harris was talking about, hey, you guys, if you're coming up, know that you're gonna face this consequence, that consequence, and the third consequence. And maybe some folks don't like that aggressive posturing and positioning, which I understand if you don't. Either way it goes, the numbers have dropped. And the reasons why, we can begin to analyze. And if that's part of the analysis, and there is an issue with so many people coming to the border, maybe we start doing things that help that aspect while we then also work on our approach to these folks that do end up coming here for things like, running away from death. Oh, you pulled a Jayar Burbank, I love it. You're muted.
Oh, I just wanted to be on theme on the watch list. But that's the thing, Jayar, it's like, I get that Chris Murphy is making some points, right? We see Republicans do the photo op thing at the border, and they love obsessing over it like it's this chaotic situation that will never get under control, and there's criminals everywhere, and blah, blah, blah. We also had during the Trump administration, Democrats really make a meal out of Trump detaining migrants, out of Trump deporting migrants or expelling them. And then Biden gets into office and expels or deports more Haitian migrants than any president in history. And it's like, okay, what is our stance on immigration? What is our policy plan on immigration? Because I get that Chris Murphy says into the microphone, we have legislation, they could help address this issue on the floor of Congress with us. Let's work together. Let's get something done. What do you want to get done? You're on the news. You can tell all of the Americans that you want to convince to call their constituents to support your legislation what it is. What is the plan? And unfortunately, there isn't one because Democrats don't really want to address the migration problem in a way that makes sense, because before we closed the border, we had a pretty intertwined agrarian economy. Workers would come over for the summer seasons, they'd work on farms and they'd go back to their families in Mexico. There was a huge part of migration that wasn't asylum seekers. And then when we closed the border, instead of going back home for the winter months here and the warmer months down there, they instead had to stay because the consequence of leaving would be maybe not being able to come back and provide for their family in the same way. And so when we really get real about what the consequences of policies have been, we need to realize that maybe having such stringent border policy on both sides of the aisle, what's been proposed, all of it's bad and doesn't achieve the consequence that we're looking for. And so I'm not a fan of either side on the issue. But Biden is funny on the bike when he's like, oh, well, it's going better than you thought it would. It's just beautiful.
And he wanted to say it as soon as he said it, he was smiling to himself and he was proud of it, which of course is a decent line. Then he has to flip back to, no, because he can't. I was saying this before the show, there's some weird handler speak in politicians' brains that go, wait, if you say that what folks were expecting, this specifically Democratic minds, if you say what people are expecting didn't happen and it benefits you, oh my God, they're gonna dislike you for being so bloviating and you're boastful about your position. Hey, it worked, bro. And last thought here, as far as the border, you talked about the two different approaches to it. Politics probably should be a pretty boring subject. It should be a subject that you don't find your politicians on TV with props and ranting and raving to get attention from TV cameras. But probably something that focuses on analyzing what does it happen and what policies work, and then implementing those policies because your objective is to help the country, not to just get any kind of advantage over your opponents. It's a football game that's supposed to be boring. It's supposed to be like attorney's work. Do we go in and or even like, accountants? So is the accountant at one firm doing different than the accountant at the other firm? Well, they're all crunching numbers. It's boring stuff, but they're getting something done. We don't really have that approach to our politicians, at least not anymore. And now it's just a popularity, straight up stupidity contest. I'm way behind, we got a lot to do. Let's go up to Iowa and see what Michael Schur was talking about.
How would you define wokeism?
Let me start here. Yeah, I'm not good at defining woke. Let him do that, but yeah.
Woke is accepting everything that is evil. So, for instance, Monster cans. Each line represents a 6. So you got 666. And then if you look on the Monster can itself, in the O of the Monster, it has a cross and it's got, it represents the Antichrist. So when you drink it, you've got the cross coming down. And that's
wokeism, yes, sort of in a nutshell.
Yes.
I actually thought the guy was gonna have a different, better definition of wokeism. Michael Schur went up to Iowa to hang out with some of the Trumpers at his event that then got canceled. I guess it was the tornadoes and all those things in the area. So he asked a few questions. This one about wokeism. What is woke? It's the toughest question for folks to answer lately. And apparently it's about Monster cans and how they're everything woke is evil. And somehow woke has something to do with monster, and then monster then based off of evil. I brought a Monster can since they were talking about this whole thing. Apparently evil in my hands. This is one lady from 2014 explaining why this is very evil.
Look at your M closely. There's a gap right here in the letter M. It's never connected. So you go into Hebrew. The letter Vav is also the number 6. Short top, long tail. Short top, long tail. You could have here in Hebrew 666 on the can. But my interest is the word monster. What do you see in the O? There's a cross. Okay. What has Christ got to do with an energy drink, let alone the name Monster? So I thought, well, maybe this is a Christian company then. BFC at the bottom of the can. Do you know what that stands for? That's the F word. Big can. In fact, they write it on the side of the can, so I know that's the F word.
Okay.
Now, do you know what a MILF is?
Uh-oh, this is really shifting. This is going places. I was bored for a second.
Let her finish.
I was like, okay, the lines, sixes in Hebrew. There's BFG. You know, the F word has nothing to do with a Christian at all, because the Christians never used the F word before Burbank. But MILFs, please continue.
I want to hear.
And what is witchcraft? When the cross goes upside down, bottoms up, and the devil laughs. Something to think about.
It's something to think about, Jess. You know, the devil laughs. Look, okay. Oh, jeez. I heard when I opened the can. You hear it? Did you hear it?
I heard the devil laugh, JR. And somewhere, a MILF is also shouting about the devil. And why? Okay, here's the thing. She would have been a great like Taylor Swift fan, how they just grasp at straws for theories about what Taylor Swift is possibly doing. And they come up with so much stuff. And it's actually not detective work, it's more creative work, right? These are figments of their imagination. It's unfortunate that she says, what does Jesus have to do with an energy drink? It's like she asks questions that we have no business even thinking about. That doesn't take my brain anywhere. That makes me not want to drink Monster anymore. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. And then she just throws MILF in there out of nowhere. That was the devil talking. It had nothing to do with the rest of what she was saying. I think maybe after she does these tabling sessions, she might drink some of the devil's juice, Monster Energy.
I think she might need it in order to get those theories going again. But again, woke connected to then that and MILFs and BFGs. Who knows? But the devil's laughing is the bottom line. These are the people we're taking seriously. These are the people who then go to events and say, I'm voting for Donald Trump because somebody said something about woke and monster in 3 lines. These are the serious discussions that we're having. Like I said, we were short on time. There was more going on at this rally that didn't happen in Iowa. How about drag queens versus gun violence? Can you guess which one is more violent? Let's go.
What do you think is more dangerous to the country, drag or guns?
Drag, for sure.
How come?
It's poisoning the youth. That's what's going to run our country. It's scary. But guns is my right. I know how to handle them. I've taken training. I've raised my kids. Guns are our primary. It's our right, our Second Amendment right that I refuse to give up and many of our people refuse to give up.
Only her people refuse to give it up. So apparently that's not the dangerous part. Forget the fact that folks are killed by the hand with people carrying these guns around every day and just shooting indiscriminately because they feel like it. It's those drag queens. There's more she has to say though, as they were talking in Iowa. More.
Not even just talking about. I'm just talking about the danger. You talked about how it's poisoning our kids.
From law-abiding citizens, and the thugs and the criminals are still going to have their guns. I want to be able to protect myself from a thug or a criminal. I want to protect. You know, if I'm in a school visiting my grandkids and there's a shooting, I want to be able to pull out and stop.
But you just said it, if there's a school shooting. As far as I can tell, people haven't died from drag, and that's why I asked the question.
Answers for it. I have a question, Bert. Maybe you can tell me this, because I've been asking myself this all morning. What's the difference between a thug and a criminal? Because she said, I want to be able to pull my gun to shoot a thug or a criminal. They already assume thugs are criminals, and thugs, of course, are black folks. We know they replace that with the N-word anytime they can. So what's the difference between a thug and a criminal? Can you shoot a thug just for walking down the street and wearing what you think a thug wears? Where does the line get drawn here?
That's a good question. The difference between thugs and criminals. We should ask them, because to me, I don't use the word thug. I think they use the word thug pretty much as you said, in replacement of the N-word. One time I was in Iowa, actually, where Michael Shore was, and I was talking to someone who was a sheriff. I had been in a car accident, my car was totaled, and I might have had a concussion and was not thinking right. And so I asked the sheriff, do you think the cops have too much power right now? And my friend in the back seat was like, oh no, we can't go here. And the response was actually pretty even-handed. He said, sometimes the Supreme Court takes away some of our power. and then we don't have enough, and then crime goes up, and then they give us some more power and we abuse it, and it goes back and forth. It swings like a pendulum, which is, a better take than I'd expect from someone in his position. But he then said, except now, things are not going well. We've got a bunch of thugs coming over from Chicago and they're living in Des Moines, Iowa. And I was like, oh, there it is from this guy. And it's true. It's just like when it's someone who is not black, someone who you're not going to racially profile as a thug, when you think about what a criminal is, it's like, oh, that's someone making a mistake or experiencing something that's abnormal. But then when you say thugs, people doing stuff that is against the law, when you say thug, you make it seem like that's their lifestyle, that's their choice, that's who they are as a person, right? That's what I take from the psychology behind it.
And if you follow that psychology, a thug would be former President Donald J. Trump, a lifelong full of crime and con artist work and screwing people over and all that type of stuff. Admittedly, let's keep it real. That's who the thug is here. Let's go ahead and jump more, because that's again how this rally went. Michael Schur is a much more calm man than I am. I wouldn't be able to go through all those interviews. Let's go ahead and jump to this next story, you guys. Down in Florida, this one teacher has been caught up in what many teachers are caught up in. Apparently, they're too woke. It's time to get to sleep. She tells her story.
Hi, my name is Jenna Barbie. I'm the teacher that is under investigation with the Florida Department of Education for indoctrination for showing a Disney movie. So I want to bring up the issue that I'm in trouble for. I was told by every teacher and mentor at our school that our method for approval by administration of showing movies was to have a signed parent permission slip for PG movies. I had that from the beginning of the year. The whole 5th grade team had signed permission slips for PG movies with no objections to specific content. I actually had one student who did have objection to specific content, not showing the Buzz Lightyear movie, but she wasn't in my classroom anymore, so it wasn't a big deal. The reason I was turned in is because one of the split students was a school board member's daughter. That school board member is currently on a rampage to get rid of every form of representation out of our schools. She even spent days this past week going to all the high schools to get rid of anything that had to do with representation whatsoever.
This teacher down in Florida is now under investigation for showing a damn movie. I'll let you guys know what movie that is in a second, but apparently, as you saw there was a bit of a mixed classroom situation. Standardized testing was happening, and some of these kids had some free time and needed a brain break, so they watched a movie. And now all this came from it. That movie that this teacher down in Florida is talking about, Strange World is the movie from Disney. These explorer family here. There's a couple of there's a kid there that apparently is the product of a mixed race relationship, which is definitely a problem. But the next problem they have instead is a little bit something else. Let's let Barbie, that teacher there, explain more about what this mother who was on this crusade against her was going through. Let's watch.
She even had admin escort her to a teacher's classroom that had a sticker of a black hand and a white hand holding hands, and the white hand had a different color fingernail for every finger. So the school board member called the Department of Education on me for indoctrination before ever coming to our school to talk with me or admin about the situation. So I didn't think it was a big deal, but seeing how upset she was, I told her I understand my lesson. That's that. But come to find out, she had already reported me and there was nothing she can do about it. So I chose this movie because it relates to our curriculum. Our unit at the time was earth science and ecosystems and how they interact. Plants, humans, animals. So this movie is perfect.
Apparently it's not perfect. Again, I speculated what could the problem have been with this movie. By the way, I heard reviews about this movie were bad. People didn't really watch it. So maybe these children, for the first time they were exposed to this movie, and apparently afterwards they just went crazy because they saw something that this one particular mother who was on a crusade had a problem with. Apparently that problem is this male character in the movie talked about, for a minute, a crush on another boy. And oh my God, what does that do to our children? Here's a piece of that movie. Be careful, if the children in the room, they might start turning into same-sex crazed maniacs. Watch.
Hey, Diazzo.
Hey, gang, what's the haps?
Dad, what are you doing?
Ooh, is this him?
Okay, don't we have some deliveries to make?
Hey, Diazzo seems cool. I see why you like him.
Stop talking.
I remember my first crush.
Oh my God. You know what? I got a little bit gay just for a minute there when I saw it myself, and I'm not even like the 5th grader or nothing, Burbank. It's a problem going on in our schools.
I can feel the gay coming over me, JR. I can understand why they didn't want them to watch this film. Absolutely absurd. What breaks my heart about this the most is that the teacher, you can tell the emotional distress that she's under. You can hear it in her voice. They're not paid enough to deal with stuff like this as teachers. It's ridiculous. The fact that she's under investigation personally goes to show what their agenda is, right? They're not like, oh, well, let's change the curriculum, no more gay movies. That's not what they're about. They're like, let's attack this one individual person. Like try and make her fired, try and make the consequences for her. Because it would be absurd for them to pass, policy where they're like X, Y, and Z movie is banned. I mean, they're doing it with books. They might do it with movies too. We'll see. But they really want to make it retaliatory, right? Let's take down this one person whose ideology might be a little different from ours.
By the way, her ideology, as she pointed out during something at a 6.5-minute video talking about it, she goes, she's had students come up to her, and many times they're shy about other things, and tell her where they are somewhere maybe on along that spectrum of same-sex attraction and things like that. And she said, I don't tell them one way or another, I just accept who they are. And that's what they're so upset about from this one person. They want to make an example of her. By the way, graphic 3, you guys, because this is the letter that went home to families after this whole thing went crazy for some reason. Now imagine you get this back and you have to wonder, well, what? Here's what they said. Yesterday, the Disney movie Strange World was shown in your child's classroom, which maybe if you're reading this as a parent, you go, oh, maybe they missed some work. The school district said this, and then while not the main plot of the movie, parts of the story involves a male character having and expressing feelings for another male character. In the future, this movie will not be shown. The school administration and the district's professional standards department is currently reviewing the matter to see if further corrective action is required. What corrective action for what? Showing a movie where a kid expresses feelings for another male character. This is what in 2023, the United States of America, who deems ourselves the greatest country in the history of the world and most dominant, intelligent, far-thinking, progressive country ever. Well, they probably keep that progressive part out, but definitely the strongest and most brutal and will absolutely F you up. But if your child sees a movie for 2 minutes and one of the characters is attracted to another male character, oh my God, we have to do things like what the teacher points out in this last video. This is what they did in response, because they're talking about how kids were traumatized by what they saw in the film.
Is a character in the movie LGBTQ? Absolutely. Is that why I showed it? No. I have a lot of 5th grade students who have come to me this year, long before showing this movie, talking about how they're part of that community as well. And it's not a big deal to me, so I just said, okay, that's awesome, do you? I also want to bring up the fact that none of my students cared or batted an eye. They didn't even know this was a big deal until the board member and the state made it a big deal. They're using it against me, saying they're protecting the children and it's for their safety. But what is this actually showing them? Their teacher showed a movie to help them connect to our curriculum and learn some valuable life lessons. But the minor representations that have nothing to do with the movie are such a big deal that now admin is in their room, pulling their teacher out, calling the students one by one down to the office to interrogate them in the middle of my lessons.
And that's what they're doing instead, Burbank. So you got law enforcement, interrogators, investigators going and talking to these elementary school age children about what it is they saw. How many of them do you think are wondering, am I in trouble? What happened? Is my teacher going to jail? What's the crime here? No one knows.
The crime is we saw some gay stuff at school, Dad. It's like ridiculous because all of the Disney movies have stuff in them that are not stuff you want to emulate, right? Are you gonna watch 101 Dalmatians and go kill a bunch of puppies? Are you gonna watch Snow White and eat weird stuff that strangers give you and make deals with witches or Cinderella? Then you're gonna sneak out and see strange men. There's a lot of bad stuff in movies that kids watch. And this is not the worst of it. Just because there was a gay character doesn't mean you're indoctrinating kids to become gay. But they're so afraid that if they know what gay is and their kid is gay, that they will say, I am gay. And they want to make it so that they don't even know what it is, erase gay culture entirely from our society so that their kids could never be gay. It's absolutely so ridiculous. I'm sure that teacher had parents or had kids rather come and tell her that they, might identify on, the queer spectrum. Because they couldn't tell their parents about it. And that's so sad. That's like bad parenting, and it's antisocial to say we have to pretend these people don't exist.
And that's the idea, because then if you do hear it, then you're supposed to say, oh, well, those folks, they're evil. This is the indoctrination that's actually happening. Because again, they're seeing gay characters so that they will be gay. How many straight characters do they see? Why doesn't that work? Why don't depiction of straight characters, which we've seen throughout all television and movies since forever, why doesn't that stick? Why is your perspective of the only thing that's right? Why doesn't it stick? And ask yourself, maybe I'm on the wrong side of this stupid ass argument. Let's jump to this last story, you guys. Maybe you fought over a scooter before. How about a bike? This is crazy.
Go, record him.
Help me! Please help me!
It's not your bike.
Please help me!
It's not your bike. It's not your bike.
Please help me! Help! Please get off me!
Hey, what the fuck is going on, bro?
Please get off me!
Yo, don't let him take it, bro. Now you're not getting the bike, bro.
Hey, now you're not getting the bike, bro. Help!
You're not getting
Get
the
off
bike.
me,
I'm
dude.
not.
Why you took his phone? What's wrong with you?
You're not
Don't touch his phone. Do not touch his phone.
I'm not touching you. You putting your stomach on my hand.
A dispute over some electric chargeable temporary bikes went down here, you guys. And this one lady, she tried to take one from this young guy who had already apparently put in his information, so his information was locked and connected to this bike. It looked like there's multiple bikes there, but she apparently wanted this one. I guess she liked the way this one looked. I don't know what it was, but she's screaming and talking about help and everything like that. That didn't help, as people were filming her entire interaction where she's the aggressor. So of course, crying came in next. Watch.
She's just crying.
You're not crying. You're not crying. I got your video. Wait, you pulled it out? Hey, Hassan, you pulled it out? Hassan, you pulled it out?
This is my bike. It's on my account. Please move.
All right, so why don't we reset the bike?
I'm not resetting the bike.
It's his.
Reset it. I'm gonna pull it out on your account.
You're active. Stop fake crying.
Guys,
just fake crying. Stop fake crying.
Hey, stop touching me. I don't touch you.
Hold up.
Hey, stop touching me. Stop touching me.
Why don't you take this bike?
Stop touching me.
How you stop crying? Not a tear came down, miss. Not a tear came down.
Not a tear came down, and the guy eventually kept his bike, and I think someone else let her grab the one that he was gonna get, because eventually she gets her way, of course, but at least not in the preliminary part about this whole thing. You're still looking for those tears though, right? Is there some kind of like class that gets taught for certain folks to have to try and fake some tears when they find themselves on the wrong side of a disagreement and they're the bad guy? Oh, I'm the victim, but it's only for certain folks. And I think you guys see what kinds of folks those are. OG Bobby Johnson, over on Twitter, he definitely noticed what types of folks. He pointed out this is the behavior that got whole black towns burned to the ground. Yo, we just saw the woman who accused Emmett Till of whistling and hitting on her just passed away after all these years. And she never faced consequences for doing exactly what she did, weaponizing her whiteness and then getting all these other guys who apparently were backed by our government and our policing systems to go and murder that teenager years and years ago. It still lives to this day. So we can keep ignoring what we've been through and act like what we're doing now isn't the exact same thing. Also, she works at NYC Health and Hospitals in Bellevue, and they put out a statement saying they're gonna look into it, an investigation, and we'll make sure everything is cool until you guys stop talking about this. Then maybe we can go back to business as usual. But maybe she shouldn't be seeing patients that look like these folks that she thought she could weaponize with her fake ass tears.
Yeah, I agree, Jayar. The way she says help, you can tell she's not in distress or pain. You can tell she's just being annoying. And still, there are people who go over and talk on their cell phone and try and call for help. I don't know who the intermediaries were that pulled up there. But it's ridiculous because you hear him say, this bike is on my account. I believe him. I believe the bike was definitely on his account because she didn't say, no, it's not, it's on mine. She just crocodile teared. So it's very obvious what went down here. She feels entitled and clearly is very racist, doesn't like that there's black people in a space that she's in. And so she's gonna cause a problem simply because she knows she has the power to do so and can garner sympathy by people nearby. And it's like, what gets someone to the point of Karenism? I think they're just sad and lonely and don't have a lot to offer to society, but maybe it's something else.
Just like there's spectrums of all kinds of things, there's spectrums of racism as well. And maybe some people think, yo, I'm not a blatant racist. I don't use the N-word. But yo, when you start weaponizing your position and your privilege in society and making sure society sees things a certain way, it can be as fake as hell. But as long as you make people see it because you see that person in front of you, know they're gonna lose this argument based off society, that's an indictment of our society and what you perceive it to be, to put you above someone else. Yo, that's racism. And that's accepting it at least and embracing it in our society. Maybe you should think about who you are. We got a chance to see who you are today, Burbank. I appreciate you being here and showing us more. Maybe next Monday we'll do it even more.
Let's try it again, yeah.
Why not? Maybe it'll work out. Thank you for joining us again. Also, I thank you guys for joining me on a Big Monday. Up next is the Young Turks. Cenk Uygur, Anna Kasparian join you. Please have fun. We'll see you on Tuesday.